Full disclosure, the voice you are listening to now is artificially generated, brought to you by satisphonic.com. See the link in the description for more details. Which old wives' tale is actually true? Ammonia on a mosquito bite. Dab a bit of ammonia on it and don't touch it. Count to 120 seconds and the bite is gone, inflammation, etc. When I first heard of it, I didn't believe it. Now, just a touch of kitchen ammonia and don't scratch and it's beyond gone. Completely. Wait, so the Windex trick in Big Fat Greek Wedding works? Yes, for insect bites, pimples, minor cuts, pretty much anything that needs cleaning. Except possibly for taints and such. Never intend to experiment there. Thank you. What about the butthole proper? I'm guessing that's a no-go? Piss on a mosquito bite. Got it? During the medieval times in the Flandrian Ghent, now Belgium, there used to be a very important job, the urine collector. Urine was later processed to create ammonia, which was in turn used to create saltpeter for making gunpowder. Every morning urine collectors would ride around the city with a huge barrel and pay money for urine. Obviously, some clever citizens emerged who would dilute the product. Thus a new vocation emerged, the urine tasters, who would determine the quality and concentration of the coveted ammonia. Eventually times changed and humans learned to synthesize ammonia or harvest it in other ways, making the urine collectors and tasters obsolete. So all these urine specialists left Flanders, moved to Amsterdam and founded the Heineken brewery. Badum, Tesh. Physicians back in the day used to taste urine, especially to diagnose diabetes. The mellitus in diabetes, mellitus, what you normally think of when you hear diabetes, refers to the honey flavor of patients' urine. To add to this, run a spoon under hot water, not so hot as to burn you, and then place the spoon on the bite. The bite may itch more for the next minute, but it breaks up the toxins and will stop itching. It needs to be so hot that it would be uncomfortable on e.g. your whole arm. Something to do with proteins, ayuk. Pharmacies also sell a special kind of electric pen thing that you press on the bite, hurts like a motherfuck, but really gets rid of the itch. What you're doing is denaturing proteins that cause the itching. Hence why it needs to be photosynthetic electric enough to cook the protein. You don't want to denature your own proteins, so localizing the treatment via spoon or electric pen works better. Finally, my degree is useful. A cut onion rubbed on insect bites takes away the sting. I've tried it on wasp and ant bites and works instantly. It giveth tears and it taketh away. Honey as topical medicine. It's actually used in hospitals now for certain kinds of wound dressings. It's antimicrobial and keeps other shit from getting in the wound. When rain is coming, your joints hurt. I used to roll my eyes and laugh when Granny said her arthritis was acting up because it was going to rain. I was 10 years old. I'm now 53 and not laughing. Granny 1, me 0. Yeah, the change in air pressure causes it. I always get a sinus headache before a cold front. Oh my God, is that why I had a migraine a few weeks ago? That's my wife. Random headache starts. Instant checklist. When did I last drink water? Get a cup just in case. When was breakfast? Maybe munch on a snack still there. Maybe a Coke or small coffee. Still creeping up. Neck and arm rolls. Ask for a neck-shoulder massage. Not helping. Check the sleep app and cup machine for the report of how I slept. Good 8 hours of sleep. Good 8 hours of sleep. Here's raindrops in the roof. Well, shit. So true. The scientific explanation is that it's due to the low pressure system associated with rain, that the drop in barometric pressure, air's weight, takes weight off our body and can cause muscle, tendons and joints to swell, which causes pain. Even more so if you have scar tissue from a previous injury or arthritis. Doomed is the child who, when kissed on the forehead, tastes salty. He is cursed and will soon die. It's cystic fibrosis. Nowadays, we know that cystic fibrosis is due to a non-functional protein that regulates salt transport. When that protein doesn't work, you get thick, sticky mucus clogging up every membrane, and a whole bunch of salt being pumped onto the skin. Many diseases existed for a lukewarm time before we had the framework to understand them, but our ancestors were paying attention and trying to understand these tragedies through the lenses that they had. And sometimes that's how you get an old wives' tale that is right on the money. Call the Midwife had a fascinating episode about this. The mother had lost other children, and the mother knew something was wrong with her baby. The doctors ignored her. The midwife figured it out from the salty taste of the baby. Many of the historical accounts on Call the Midwife are fascinating. After many episodes, I found myself going on deep dives looking at practices and history. I love cum. I just wouldn't recommend watching it while pregnant. Freaked me out. We brought my daughter home from the hospital after a rocky pregnancy. First show we watched after we put her in her pack-and play was that calm episode where the baby has a congenital heart defect and dies at home with his parent. Nope, no siren, no issues here. The full name of diabetes is diabetes mellitus. Mellitus is Latin for honey, because doctors used to diagnose it by tasting your urine. There is also diabetes insipidus. A hormone is defective and you end up urinating a lot. It's not related to diabetes mellitus, and the insipidus in that means tasteless, as opposed to mellitus, which is important because diabetes insipidus causes extremely dilute urine, so it tastes less like urine. The interesting part about this is how much urine were ancient physicians tasting in order to identify these disorders. They weren't. The first-year residents were. This was the first sign that my oldest nephew had CEF. Neither of his parents were aware of CEF in the family, but luckily they knew to talk to his doctor and got him diagnosed very quickly. How's he doing? I know a family that CEF runs heavily in. Everyone and their partners have to get tested before having kids to see if they carry the gene. There is an amazing breakthrough drug called Trikafta that is actually stunningly effective. My friend's son had dropped below 30% lung function and was about to be put on a transplant list when Trikafta launched. He is now over 50%, has not been in the hospital in 4 years, and actually has a glimmer of a future. I hope the family you know is still chia-free. It's an awful disease. I worked on the clinical trials bringing Trikafta to market. It's a life changer. My daughter-in-law has CEF and she is thriving in her mid-30s. Just a few decades ago, that would have been unusual. I hope the treatments keep advancing and that she lives a long and happy life. I am 43. I was in end-stage Keef and refusing a transplant when Orkambi came out, and luckily that and Simdeko, the next gen, stabilized me enough to live to see Trikafta. I obviously have extremely damaged lungs with lots of scar tissue, so I'll never regain lung function. However, I am no longer extremely malnourished and underweight. A bit chunky now, actually, a fun side effect of Trikafta. And my IV therapies are a year apart instead of the 2-3 months apart they were when I started trying. I was born in 1980. Every few years I got a new won't live to see date. First it was grade school, then preteens, then 16, then 30. It's absolutely mind-boggling, and I really deal with a lot of survivor's guilt. But I am so happy F will no longer be an early death sentence. The estimated age now is 50-60s with these drugs. It was 35 before try, and I'm so grateful I got to see my complete surprise children graduate high school, and will see the eldest graduate college this spring. Crazy. End rant. Is that an actual quote? Source? I find the inherited knowledge fascinating. In Australia, the First Nations that live near the uranium deposits in Arnhem Land call it the sickening lands, without having an idea what uranium is or does. Gathering herbs by the light of the moon. Some plants, pollinated by moths, have their most potent oils at night to attract night insects. So if you need it at its strongest, pick it at night. Which herbs? Which herbs? Oh. Learn it something new today. Thanks. Red sky at night. Sailors delight. A red sky appears when dust and small particles are trapped in the atmosphere by high pressure. This scatters blue light, leaving only red light to give the sky its notable appearance. A red sky at sunset means high pressure is moving in from the west, so therefore the next day will usually be dry and pleasant. Met Office. Shepherds for us here in the UK. A while back, scientists set out to prove false the old wives' tale that if a pregnant woman has lots of heartburn, her baby will be born with a thick head of hair, except they ended up doing the opposite. Turns out heartburn really is associated with a baby having lots of hair. Hateps, Pupand, and B. Nelm, Nike, of 17,150,070, can confirm. Had absolutely horrendous heartburn. My daughter came out as hairy as a monkey. How is the little monkey now? Considerably less hairy, haha, with crazy hair on her head, still thought. Sounds like a happy monkey, lol. I had so much heartburn and my baby was practically bald until he was 1. If you have bad back pain or a broken rib and have to sneeze, look up will hurt way less. Sneezing with a broken rib feels eerily similar to being shot in the chest. Sounds like you've had some terrible luck in your time. More of an old nurse's tale, but redheads need more anesthetic. Turns out that there is a linked gene to red hair that increases resistance or metabolism or something to the drug. At any rate, waking up in the middle of a full colonoscopy sucks. Hearing the doctor say, "Ah, shit, she's awake, give her another one." And the nurse, all melodramatic as she pushes another syringe's worth into your IV, saying to him, "Are you sure, doctor?" as your eyes slowly close again, is especially awesome. When I was in 7th grade, I needed to have my baby teeth pulled out because I had 2 permanent teeth that were laying sideways and backwards. The baby teeth would never be able to come out on their own. The baby teeth had their roots a little around the permanent teeth. The dentist numbed me and started to pull. It was incredibly painful, and I started to cry and yell out in pain. I will never ever forget what the dentist told me. He said I wasn't in pain. It was just pressure I was feeling, and I was scared. It hurt so bad. I had to do that twice. 6 teeth altogether, 3 at a time. I had braces for 7 years and 2 oral surgeries. Years later, as an adult, I had to have one of my wisdom teeth pulled, and I was shaking because I was so scared. When the hygienists numbed me, she tested to ensure it was numb. It was not. She said, "Oh, you're in a small percentage of people who need extra. I figured you might be because of your gender and red hair." She gave me a second shot. It went smoothly. I keep thinking back to when I was just a kid, screaming in pain as they pulled my teeth without being completely numb. Edit. Since this has gotten a lot of attention, I thought I would add a few things. I am so sorry that so many of you have also had similar experiences. I feel for you all and understand your pain and frustration. Some additional details. They had to remove the teeth because the baby teeth had their roots wrapped a bit around the permanent teeth that were laying sideways. As soon as everything healed, I got braces on. Because there was such a large gap between teeth, there was always a wire that acted as a cheese grater on my cheeks. Once the orthodontist got my crooked teeth straight, he then pushed some of my teeth back to make room for the oral surgeon. I had 2 permanent teeth laying down and sideways, 1 on each side of my mouth. During the first oral surgery, they drilled through my jawbone and attached a bracket onto the teeth that were laying sideways inside the gums. Then they threaded a wire down into the gums and onto the bracket. Every month, the orthodontist would tighten the wire going into my gums to pull up the teeth. After 12 months of this, 1 tooth was up, but the other hadn't budged at all, so a second oral surgery was needed. This time they took a very tiny piece of my jawbone out to make more room for the tooth to be pulled up. Then, every month, the orthodontist would tighten the wire to try and bring up the sideways tooth. All of this was very painful. Every month. Eventually both teeth were up and in position. Then they had to move all my teeth back in place. That took another year or so. Funny story. Because of all the issues I had around my teeth, I used to brag about only having 2 wisdom teeth. I felt this was the universe's way of apologizing to me for all the dental issues I had to go through. My family dentist, not the same person who didn't believe my pain, told me that if my 2 wisdom teeth didn't bother me, there was no need to have them removed. This was a huge relief for me. Well, years later, when I was 26, I woke up in a lot of pain from an infected wisdom tooth. It had to come out. I called my mom because I didn't think I could afford the copay on my own, and she met me at the dentist office. She was in the waiting room when they told me it had to come out that day. I started shaking and asked if my mom could be with me. The hygienist thought I was crazy, lol. I was 26 asking for my mom. Second funny story. Again, because of the issues I had around my teeth, when my second wisdom tooth had to be removed, I again asked my mom to come with me. It was a new office, and the surgeon didn't know me. It was my first time there. I was 27 at this point, a full-grown adult bringing her mom to an appointment. Not just to the appointment, but I made her be in the room with me. Well, the oral surgeon thought, since my mom was there, that I must have some sort of cognitive disability. She kept telling me how cute I looked and how proud she was of me, then giving my mom all the aftercare instructions. Honestly, I just let it go because it was kind of nice. Poor baby. Oh man. I'm so sorry. The story I've heard is that this was a funny little observation by doctors and nurses for decades, but nobody understood why. They've only recently discovered the gene in the last 20 years or so, this validating lots of horrible experiences by patients and oddball observations by doctors. I am so sorry no one listened to you then. I'm glad that they're listening now. Yep, nurses didn't believe me when I told them the epidural didn't work. Dentists also didn't believe me when I wouldn't numb. It's not pain, it's pressure is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life, and I heard it way too many times. Do you actually think I don't know the difference between pressure and being in so much pain that I want to pass out? If you are someone who has ever said that to someone, kindly pull your head out of your fucking ass. I have 2 broken teeth at the moment that have been broken for literal years, and best believe I won't step foot into the dentist unless I'm dying from pain. Pressure, not pain. Heard that from a male doc while in labor. Thought about squeezing his balls really hard and having him differentiate for me. Letting a baby eat after you will cause them to get cavities. When my sister told us not to let my nephew eat something we've taken a bite out of, I thought she was full of shit. It turns out adults really can't transfer cavity-causing bacteria to baby. A good senator is a poor senator, only if they stay that way. Nurses used to put jaundice's babies on windowsills until their color returned. No idea how they figured it out, but it's actually a legitimate cure. My sister-in-law saw a picture of my newborn and says she's jaundiced. Put her by the window or take her outside for a wee bit. Hospital didn't mention jaundice at all, but turns out she was and taking her outside work. They usually put them in ewe cribs for a day or two. Many Asian babies, while might not be jaundiced, spend a bit of time under UV, just in case. He figured it out by total accident. Ran the test he was conducting, went to lunch while waiting for results, leaving the petri dish sitting in the sunlight next to a window. When he came back from lunch an hour later, he wasn't sure if he'd run the test or not, and ran it again, and got different results for the same dish. First test came back positive for jaundice. The second did not. Being a good scientist, got a new dish, ran experiment again, as exactly as he could the next day, and same result. Worked out it was sunlight doing it, and it then became the natural cure for jaundice. Works on adults too. Was prescribed bed rest and sunbathing with little clothing as possible when I was jaundiced several years ago to let my liver heat. I had ignored glandular fever for way too long and my liver was shutting down. Chicken soup. When you're sick, got to stay hydrated. Protein, carbs, fat and electrolytes. It's a solid choice. It's more of a liquid choice. Chicken broth is also better than water at reducing nasal congestion. Yeah, but I'm not putting it in my neti pot. Coward. Chicken. Cold cabbage leaves relieves engorgement and mastitis pain while nursing. It sounds so old wives' tale, but it's been proved true. They found a potential antibiotic in a frog after a folklore to throw the frog in milk so it doesn't spoil as fast. Drinking gelatin to up amniotic fluid during pregnancy. They wanted to schedule a C-section at 32 weeks for my kid due to low amniotic fluid. My friend's midwife told me to mix gelatin packets into apple juice and drink it before it started to thicken. 3x a day. Brought my levels up from a 3 to an 8 and managed to keep the kid baking for another 4 weeks. She was born at 36 weeks, weighing 4 ups 3 years. So the gods only know how tiny she would have been at 32 weeks. She was discharged with me 3 days later at 4 as 1 as is. Perfectly healthy besides being as tiny as a doll, and she didn't wear clothes for 4 months because I was terrified of breaking her. But yeah, I never thought it would work. Good midwives are gold. If you ever feel dehydrated, get a pinch of salt, put it in your water and add lemon, no sugar, and just drink. It helps. Sounds legit. To add on, if you're ever feeling dehydrated and water doesn't help, you need electrolytes. Salt, Gatorade, soup, whatever you have available. I sweat a lot and bringing electrolytic juice drink mixes makes hacking bearable for me. My grandmother always insisted that a new mom in the family get up and walk as soon after delivery as possible. Said if you stay in the bed a lot after giving birth, your hips would spread and stay that way. Turns out the hormone changes during childbirth cause your cartilage to become flexible, so your hips can widen some. It wears off fast though, so if you stay in the bed for days, like they did back in the day, your cartilage hardens back up, spread out. When you walk, your center of gravity is in your pelvis and pushes it back together. I've never seen a medical study on it, but none of the women in my family have wider hips after having kids. It's called relaxin. It makes your connective tissue, muscle, joints and ligaments super flexible, so it's easier to give birth. It's also why some people who have periods have specific joint issues after ovulation and before their period. Another fun fact, pregnant people do actually glow. The increase in estrogen makes hair and nails grow faster and thicker and improves skin elasticity. The downside is that after giving birth and experiencing a sharp drop in estrogen, your hair can shed like crazy. It's the same reason a lot of people experience hair loss when coming off combined hormonal contraceptives. Bodies are fascinating. I can't believe there are over 400 comments, and nobody has mentioned one of the most valuable old wives' tales, that garlic had medicinal powers for a wide variety of ailments. Ginger, onions, oregano, rosemary, thyme, stoneswort, old man's beard, usnea, mushrooms, so many herbs, veggies, and fungi are proven to have amazing medicinal uses. Beer makes breast milk drop. I had never heard of this before giving birth, and a couple people had asked me while pregnant if I had my beer lined up for after I gave birth, and just laughed it off. A few days after giving birth, my milk still wasn't coming in, and at the pediatrician, she said, "Listen, it's an old wives' tale, but I swear by it. Drink a beer. Preferably non-alcoholic because you just need the hot." After the appointment, I grabbed a case of Heineken, Zero chugged 2, and within hours, we were breastfeeding. I now give Heineken Zero as a gift to expectant moms. Open a window to let out ghosts. If you are seeing things, it's probably actually gas or carbon dioxide. Monoxide, not dioxide. Carbon dioxide is what you exhale. Carbon monoxide is the gas that you need detectors for. It causes hallucinations and confusion. Pregnant women should not be near cat litter. Source: I'm blind in one eye from toxoplasmosis, acquired in utero. I'm really sorry to hear that. I double-gloved and held my breath when I was pregnant. If you were a cat owner, chances are nearly 100% you had already had toxo at that point and acquired lifelong immunity. But one can never be cautious enough, I guess. Yup. In Europe, they offered me a blood test to check for immunity when I went to the doctor to talk about trying for a baby, as my doctor knew I had cats. As expected, I had it at some stage in the past, and so didn't have to be worried about being around cat litter during pregnancy. I would never get tested. Not being able to be in charge of the litter box was the best part of being pregnant. People can smell illness, at least in babies. I can't link a paper because I'm busy proving it. So far in my research, people can smell the difference between a well baby vs a poorly baby. We call it sick breath in our family. We have always known when babies are sick before definite symptoms appear. There is a distinct smell. This is true. When your scars itch, it's going to rain. Recent surgery on joints, you notice the air pressure change. You really don't want to touch that frozen metal pole with your tongue. My mom lived in Alaska for a bit when she was young and told me a story about how the local kids showed her a piece of tongue permanently frozen to a pole beneath one of the stilted housing units. Just the second-hand account of it scared the shit out of me as a kid. I never understood why they couldn't pour warm water over his tongue to melt the ice. They could do that, or they could laugh and take pictures. I never saw A Christmas Story and didn't think it was real. I was in a high school parking lot with one friend around in the middle of the night and had to tear my tongue off the pole. For over a year, it hurt to eat and drink until it healed. The next day, I saw my tongue on the pole. I still feel stupid, and I'm in my 30s. Looking at something too close, like the TV, for too long will strain your eyes. You need to exercise your long-distance focusing muscles to prevent myopia. If you always look at things close up, you can develop it. Studies show that myopia is more often linked with behavior and environment rather than genetics. My eyesight got considerably worse during lockdown. I have terrible myopia already, but my rocks have been fairly stable for years. But while never driving and basically living like a hermit, my rocks changed enough every year that I needed new glasses. My eye doc doesn't seem to think much of this correlation, but I still now try to go outside every day for a decent amount of time, and or gaze pensively out the window. Mongolian herders live in the steppe regions of Mongolia, where there's basically no trees or large cover for miles and miles. Amazingly, very few Mongolian people living in those conditions need glasses. I do know my own vision started going down the shitter when I started using a computer for work all day, every day. Don't shower during a lightning storm. You might get electrocuted. Red sky in the morning, shepherd's warning. Red sky at night, shepherd's delight. Thought it was sailor's delight. Maybe it's geographical. Ha! I live near lots of shepherds and not so many sailors. This old wives' tale must be true on land and sea. Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. Up Jack got and home did trot as fast as he could caper, went to bed to mend his head with vinegar and brown paper. According to my 96-year-old grandma, if you have a sprain, a bruise or any kind of muscle ache, you wrap it in a brown paper bag soaked in vinegar. She's been doing it for almost a century and says it works for her. I have my doubts, but as long as she's happy, it's cool, even if she's a little stinky. Low. In my country, Romania, there's many that still stand up to today. I remember having insane toothache and my grandma put salt in a sock, warmed it up and gave it to me to hold it there on my cheek. Another one is mint tea. Have stomach pain? Just drink mint tea without sugar, can add honey, and it will go away. Steam with salt will clean up your messy nose when you're cold. If your throat hurts bad, put a warm potato on a banana bandana and tie it up on your throat. Ike, quia potato, it just works. Dip your socks into vinegar when you have high fever and it will go away. If you get sunburnt, put yogurt on your skin and it should go away. My grandma said vinegar too. It works, but Ike, how healthy it is, and it hurts like crazy. That's all I can remember. They sound so stupid, but they somehow work. Vinegar, that's it. That's my old wives' tale. Just vinegar. My mother has a trick for when you have the hiccups. It works every time. Chug a tall glass of water while pinching your nose closed to not breath. Take many small sips while swallowing, and then just pause after for a moment. Resume breathing normally. A stitch in time saves 9. So true.